Good morning and welcome back to Coffee and Commiseration. This is Kay Steinsip here. Thanks for coming back, or thanks for joining for the first time. I'm so honored to commiserate with you on this fine, what is it, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning? I've lost all track of time. It's Tuesday. Hope you all had a great weekend. I was last with you for Friday night happy hour. I've been trying to get back to you all every day since because I love doing this. So I set my alarm early so I could come to you before my insane day begins. I am chaperoning Eli on a field trip to the music conservatory this morning, and then I don't even know what from there, but I know it's a lot. So just like these coffee runs I used to have with Leslie when we were working together, we would just have to fit them in wherever we could, and we would have to go really fast sometimes because we were both so busy. And so we would sometimes do these like speed walks, and we would go through our agenda items so fast because it was all the time we had. So that's what I'm kind of going to do here too. Like, I'm just going to talk to you with the time that I have. I finally figured out how to upload like segments with guests. So that's an accomplishment for me. I figured out how to do that. So soon you will be hearing from some new voices on this podcast. In the meantime, you're stuck with me. Thank you. Thanks for uh, thanks for being with me. We had a really good weekend. John finally finished up his trial yesterday. It went well. He's happy with the verdict, and all good. So hopefully we will start to see him again. In the meantime, though, over the weekend I was still kind of solo parenting because he was still in it. I took the kids to see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child at the Pantages Theater in Hollywood. I didn't even realize the Oscars were happening the same day. Goes to show you, like, how, I don't know, like, not clued into the Hollywood, you know, entertainment scene I am. I don't even know when these things happen. And if I was just sitting at home and I had nothing to do and they were on, I just wouldn't even turn the TV on. It's just never been my thing. But I do like seeing the clothes afterwards, like one quick, magazine entry of gowns is about all that it takes for me. But we loved Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I read all of those books aloud to Molly and Nate while I was going through cancer treatment. Every single one of the Harry Potter books from start to finish out loud, because it was one of the only things I could do at the time. Like, I was so sick, and I had a second grader and a kindergartner, and I just couldn't play with them as much as I wanted to, or be active. So I read to them, which I do anyway. I always have read to our kids, every night before they go to bed. I was a child who was like saved by my love of reading. So as you know, like, I had a very, very challenging childhood in a lot of ways. And I would find refuge in books. That's where I would go to kind of escape from all the chaos and just unhappy circumstances that were part of my life, that were my life then. So I've always been an avid reader, and my kids love to read. So I read these books to the kids, and now I am reading them to Eli. And Nate kind of joins in. Nate's 14 now, so he sits with us, and sometimes he reads. And it's really weird because, especially for Nate, I'm sure, because it's like Nate was the little brother when we did this before, and now he's the big brother. And that's just not how it's supposed to be. Um, the one book we did not read aloud, I will say, is this one, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And it was sort of added after the fact. I think it came out after we had already read the series. So, but the kids had read it. So the theme here is about, if only you could go back in time, if only you could use a time turner and go back and you could change just one thing that would bring someone back, that would change what happened or what didn't happen. so that they didn't have to die. That's the whole part, the whole theme of this book and of the musical we saw. Oh, and of course, I was just thinking so much about Molly the whole time. And I have these thoughts all the time about if only one thing had been different, if only they had gone to Hebrew school like they were supposed to that morning, but there was a change of plans and they were supposed to go in the afternoon instead of the morning, or just if only, and I can think of a million different things that if only, they had been different, then Molly could still be here with us. And if I could just turn back time and go back and just be with her again, it's just it's so hard. Just longing for her physical presence, like I just want my baby. I want my daughter. I want to hear her laugh. I want to smell her skin. I want to hold her. She would be turning 17 this year. And just all the things that we missed, and that we'll continue to miss because she's not here. It's overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming. And I don't think that can ever go away. Now I'm just not just, but I'm only a boy mom. Like I'm not a girl mom like the way I used to be. Like I'm surrounded in my family by all boys, and there's nobody to commiserate with me about their silly jokes and gross humor, and to go and do the things that Molly and I used to love to do together. Every time I go to a nail salon, I always see moms and daughters sitting there getting their nails done, and there are just a million things like that out in the world that like bump up against that that nerve, what Eckhart Tolle calls a pain body. I don't know if you guys follow Eckhart, but I love his work, and it's really, really benefited me a lot. So he says we've got this like pain body inside of us, this reservoir, this storage of difficult feelings and emotions and all of that, that we have, and that it can sort of get like, someone can kind of bump into it, and trigger it. And that's what happens so often. I mean, in life, but especially in grief, that there are just a million things that trigger that pain body inside of us that make it really hard to just go through life. And the best way I've found to do it is through only living in the present day. It's just all I can handle. I've done it by necessity, but I think if you can do it, you should anyway, because it's just the only way to really live is to be in the present moment and not to be in the past, and not to be ruminating and worrying about the future or whatever, thinking about the future. It's really just to live in today. And even smaller than that, like as much as you can in the present moment. And like some real sort of practical ways of trying to come back into the present moment, as opposed to like being off in your head somewhere. Like I'll run my hands under warm water and really feel the warmth. I have problems with my hands anyway, so that for me is like soothing, but it also kind of brings me back into my body. Like I focus on the sensation and the feeling of that water and the warmth and the comfort. Or just really kind of like closing your eyes and listening to all the sounds that are around you. Like, are you even aware of these sounds at all? Did you even know like that, that these sounds were all around you for the last however long, and you hadn't even noticed them? So I try to kind of give myself these little exercises throughout the day. I was walking our dog before the Palisades burned down, and I started talking with this elderly man, and he pointed out to me, this is my favorite tree that we're standing on, next to, not on, beneath. It's early, y'all. It's early. I woke up early. I'm not sufficiently caffeinated. So this is one of the elderly people of the Palisades. There are lots of them who, have been there since the community was built in the 1950s. And those are kind of the people who have been hardest hit with the fire, because You probably, I hope you guys cannot hear toilets flushing here. You can hear all sorts of, the kids have terrible allergies, so they're like gagging and the toilets are flushing. The morning is beginning here in the household. So, and remember, not a professional podcast. So, bear with me. Anyway, where was I? What was I saying to you? I was saying to you about the guy that was under the tree and, him being one of the original inhabitants of the Palisades when the community was built in the 1950s. I'm sure he was someone who was underinsured and is now really struggling with what comes next. But under that tree that morning, he pointed out to me, like, this is my favorite tree and all the reasons why. And I stood there and I was looking at it, and it was kind of a prickly kind of tree. It was unusual. And I was like, huh, I go by here every day. Every day I pass by here and I have never noticed that tree at all. So it's interesting when you think about it. I do think, this is kind of what helps us to get through really tough times, is just being present, noticing what's happening in the present moment, and just constantly, like, not giving ourselves a hard time when our minds wander off, when we worry, when we start, you know, going back and living in the past. Like, just bringing ourselves back as much as we can with these little exercises, I think helps. Um, I also started reading this book, let them, let them. In my defense, there is a part of that theory that involves let me. So I wasn't totally crazy. Um, anyway, I started that and I like it. I see why people are into this book. Um, I've already kind of gotten the first piece of it down, of like not trying to control circumstances, not trying to control life, recognizing we have very little control. Shh, go drink some water, please. Sorry, my friends. That we control so little, like a minuscule percentage of the things that happen to us we control. So we once you recognize that and you stop trying to control life, life gets a lot more, interesting. It gets more fun. It's something you don't take everything so seriously. And, obviously I'm not talking about things like losing a loved one and those things, although we don't control that either. But, obviously we take things like that seriously, and it's impossibly painful and all of that. But what I'm talking about is um, a way to live, even when life has dealt you cards that are really hard to play. You have to play them. You must. And this is the way to do it. And so this book, what I like about this is, and the part I need is not trying to control other people. I've gotten pretty good at not trying to control life, but I still try to control people sometimes, or I react to them, or I get upset or whatever. And I think there's a lot to this idea that they talk about in the book. The author talks about it, of just letting them, so she talks about her son going to the prom and it's raining, and he's, going out with his friends to like some little dinky taco stand for dinner. He has no plans. He's just going to run out in the rainstorm and get his new tux and shoes and everything wet. And it's not what the mom wants. It's like none of this. She wants him to have a reservation and sit down and be dry and not ruin his clothes and all these things. And he wants to do what he wants to do. And the idea of like letting them is something I'm thinking a lot about. And it's in my life coming to coming to a head with Nate, because this is a struggle. And I wonder what you all think about this. It's like we are struggling with where Nate's going to go for high school, whether he will stay at his current school or he will go to a different school, which his dad and I prefer. And I think he leans more towards staying at his current school. And so it's this struggle of like, okay, let them, but you can only let your kids so much, right? I mean, of course you have to like parent, and I don't know. So it's like, obviously there's a fine line there. I haven't gotten to the part of the book about parenting with this theory yet. So I'm trying to balance that of like, we've told him it's his decision. He's mature enough to make it. We trust him to make it. And so we will, and we will go forward with that. But I personally am struggling with like, okay, he has all the information. Like, be quiet. Don't say anything else. Let him make it. Don't pressure. Like all of that. That is a struggle for me at the moment. And just in general, just sort of like trying to convince people who disagree. And it's just like, maybe the answer is let them and just focus on the best use of your own time and energy, which is limited, right? So I found that really good, and I'm applying it in relationships now, trying to. I also was always, with John, like, always trying to conform him to the way I am. And we're very different people. Like, John is very laid back. He dresses very casually. Like, he's just, and I'm very neat and orderly and like things the way I like them. And, I'm the person who's packing for a trip for 2 weeks before the trip and putting everything in the organizing compartments with the zippers and all of this. And John is the person who is clipping his toenails the night before and throwing, a change of clothes, a bathing suit, like the bare minimum, into an overnight bag the night before we leave. And so, this is our marriage. And I'm realizing, can't control other people, even if you want to. It's taken me, we're on, over 20 years of being together, 18 years of being married. And I'm finally realizing, okay, you need to let him be him. So these are the things I'm thinking about. Anyway, I am off to chaperone this field trip today, and I hope you all have a wonderful Tuesday. If you like this podcast, please give it a rating, review, whatever the terminology is. I don't follow any of the data about how this podcast is doing. I truly have no idea, but I do see the ratings, and being the way I am, as you know, I call it like I see it. I don't hold back. I can be very blunt sometimes. And that, you will have people who are with you and people who don't like you because of that. And so, there are a few 1-star reviews on this podcast, which, I know are from people who don't like my views on certain things. They are not related to this podcast. So if you are enjoying it, please leave a review and subscribe to the podcast. That would be lovely. I would appreciate it. I can't wait to commiserate with you again soon. I have so many more agenda items I didn't get to this morning because, limited time and all. I've got to go round up these kids and get them out the door and dropping it off, go on the field trip and do all the things. So, wish me luck, Godspeed. Every day on these LA freeways is like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride with me. So I'm going to do my best, and I will do it with a smile because I got to spend a little time with you this morning. I thank you for being here and wish you a wonderful day.